Good afternoon, traders. It's Mark here from the Day Trading Room. The time is 10 to 1 London time on Wednesday, the 15th of December. Christmas just around the corner. Hope you all had a good weekend. Let's run through the trades from Monday and Tuesday. Um, Not a great couple of days for me. Yesterday was a difficult day. We'll run through that in a minute, but let's go through Monday first. Just got no follow through on some of the trades apart from the one at the end of the day. But let's discuss them. I like to talk through all the trades, good and bad. This is after all a blog, so it'd be silly to censor it. Okay, on Monday we gapped out of Friday's range, the dotted green line is yesterday's high, which was Friday, or the prior day's high Friday. We gapped out of that range, and so one of my hypotheses was to look for sellers that stepped in, wait for a little pullback to get short, target of the range fill, and the gap fill was close, so I was going to see how it fared as we got close to it. All looked great. We had a little bit of a chop, then we had a push down. Ticks were very low, relatively low. Couldn't get above 300. Started to push lower, and we just had nice low tick readings. Paused here, got this pullback up to around the 50% of the move. Just poked above it, so a little bit cautious there, just waiting for it to see if it curled back down. It did start to curl back down. There was my short entry. We pushed lower and took my 10 ticks off the table, as I always do. Well, I do most of the time. And then I was just holding the other half for for the push down with the order resting, scaling. I think I had three scales, just sort of in between a tick above there and sort of down to here. And then I was going to leave one to see if I got any more out of it. I would have tape read the market as it approached there. Didn't get that. We didn't get that. We double bottomed here. And I gave it these two candles here just in case it was just wanted to run up and then push to really give us a sort of a run up at that low. But it was a buyer there. He was holding. It didn't work out, and I closed on this candle. It was probably a few ticks shy of my entry, so I only made 10 ticks on half of my size on that one. Disappointing. That's a setup that would normally work. Perhaps if I look at it in hindsight, the candles weren't as strong as they could be, and this pullback was perhaps a little bit deeper than um, than I'd expect from a weaker market. It did actually push above the 50% into that three-quarter level before rolling over. Yeah, we got a little chunk out of it. It would have been nice to get the full target on that, but never mind. We look to the next trade. Again, one of the ones that I like to use, as you know, this is the midday period, midday New York time. That is, it's 5 p.m. London time. These little lines here show me that, and there was the top from mid morning. New York time, rolled over, pushed up. It looked like an absolute perfect little setup to me. I love those trades. Pushing up, double top, really low volume, no participation, no ticks. Um, you know, Worth a little nibble. Took the short there as we started to roll over. Was going to had a few orders ready to scale in if we just sort of had a little volume spike. Didn't really get that, so had to make the decision to go in there anyway. We pushed lower and didn't get my 10 ticks. Pushed back higher, and at this point, I thought this, really this should start to push down towards this sort of VWAP and do its a deeper cycle. We didn't get that, so I ended up coming out of that trade again flat. Didn't even get a first scale on that one, which was disappointing, but didn't lose anything, so no real harm done. But again, that's the sort of trade I like to take. The push up double top midday. Normally we get something out of those, but not this time. So as it left it, and we did actually just plod on up. And really, if you look, if that doesn't turn over at the midday point and there's still some strength there, then perhaps something to look at is that later last couple of hours push to fresh highs. But we'll see. It's on my notes. I'm blogging it here now, so we'll see if that becomes a sort of setup we can look into. But in the meantime, we'll just stick to what we know. So yeah, two trades in the morning, one half sized 10 half the position, 10 ticks, the other nothing. So looking for some more opportunities. We've got one in the afternoon, luckily. Otherwise, it would have been a disappointing day. Started to roll over, just started to push through this VWAP. Decent bit of volume here. We started to pick up some speed. Ticks were starting to do some extremes, even though we haven't actually had a plus 1,000 ticks for a while. We hadn't had one at all during the day, and it wasn't until midday on the Friday that we'd had 1,000 ticks. So yeah, we started to get some reasonable tick readings, showing some participation. Push lower here, one pull back, push lower. This was quite a reasonable push. I mean, it's only 15 points or so. So it's 25 points or so, which is not a lot really in the scheme of things, but relative to that day's range, it was quite a lot. So we pushed lower, looking for the usual thing: pull back to get short, pull back here, ticks pull back to zero. There was a tape sale out of that 80, and you can see actually 1, 2, 3 for about 5 minutes where it wasn't budging. I got short a little bit early on that, but I was prepared to scale in up to about this point here, the 50% of that move. So got my short, then added as we started to roll over, and I saw this tape guy was here with the stop just there for that add, and keeping the initial stop of above here for the initial position. So I'm reducing the risk based on what I can see on the tape with that add to the short, but I'm keeping the initial stop for the initial position. We've got the rollover and just closed out into these stops down here. It was just before the close, so I think it was about here, the cash close. Just took it all out of the cash close. 15 ticks, nothing amazing, but it's that sort of setup. The push lower, just a little bit. It's a little bit unusual for the day. That surprises a few people. That's what you need, the unusual push lower. The little pull back, just seeing a little bit of tape selling there, rolls over. We've got the ticks pulling back. They went a little bit higher than I'd like, but we've got the roll over and eventually got the exit on that. Let me just see what the time was. Yeah, 59. So that was just pretty much the low. Closed on and on. Closed 15 seconds or so before the bell goes. So let's have a look at yesterday. Fed day. Oh, difficult day, really difficult day that for me. Struggled with it, but battled away. Got this opening drive up, didn't get on this pullback here, just wasn't happy with the ticks. To me, the ticks weren't really showing me signs of strength. And being Fed day, I half expected us to be in a sort of range. Push up, push lower, and sort of oscillate around the VWAP. That's my expectation, and so that's what I was spacing my trades around. So I was looking for the extremes to get short rather than for the opening drive push. We've got this opening drive pushed higher, tagged yesterday's high. Volume was okay, it spiked a little bit. Then we tagged it again and pushed through, and it just looked like we weren't going to go because the ticks weren't high. It looked good to me for a short, for a roll back over. It pushed. Time was okay. We're in the sort of 3:15 level London time. I expected a roll back over and at least to this VWAP, if not to the 50%, which was probably a little bit lower by then. Didn't get it, rolled over, straight back up, stopped me out, and I took a 12 tick stop on that one, which wasn't good. It happened to be around about that sort of level there. And really, if you look at the cash chart for yesterday, that happened to be just below the 10,500. So we didn't really get that flush above the 10,500 that I was looking for. So yeah, took a stop on that one, which happens. So looking at the next trade, at this point, okay, I've changed my idea. I'm seeing that there is a strength to the market, so I'm looking for a setup that's going to get me along on that market. And I'm aware also that the market is going to potentially go into some chop zone. I'm also looking for that flush through that 10,500 on some good ticks, good volume, 10,500 cash. Sorry, 11,500 cash. I keep saying 10,000. 11,500 cash. So that's something I'm looking for as well. But don't forget, I'm looking for that first deeper rotation down. And we got this, and it was actually worked out quite nicely because it came down, pushed to the yesterday's prior high. And we also, if I bring in the 3-minute chart, it was also the first oscillation on the stochastics. Wind down, that's the first market cycle. I'm looking to go long. Caught that quite nicely, but I tick off the low on there, really only because it was yesterday's high. Got in, and it just took so long. We pushed up, scaled out some, normal scale out, And then as we approached that high, because the 11,500 was so close, I didn't want to risk anymore, and so we managed to scale out the rest of it at that high, which was okay. It got us back in the game. And then it was just chop, 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 chop. Quite surprising the way this just drifted up. But that's what happens, when you've got such low volume, it will drift through support and resistance levels like there's nothing there, because you've got no participation from either side. So this is just retail, and it's probably retail shorting and covering and just pushing it up. And if you look at the range, you're talking 10 ticks. So it's nothing. Everyone's waiting for the FOMC. That's what we did. So we didn't get involved. I didn't get involved in that. So FOMC came out very, very dull, very, very dull indeed. No real reprice. I took a small short here. This was a small short. It was speculative, based on the fact that we just couldn't push above it, and based on the fact that the range was relatively low. It was that 10,500 cash again. I was looking for that to come back into line, for us to push down towards that. I just thought if we don't see any buying above that, which we're not seeing, then I'm going to look for a short. So I took the short there, small short, and I haven't got my arrow on here, but I came out as we pushed through here, then started to push back up. I was looking for some more distance in that, didn't get it, and it ended up being about 11 tick profit on that. I was a little bit nervous because it wasn't anything, it wasn't a spectacular setup. It was literally just based on the fact that there were no buyers above that high, and the fact that there's obviously someone sitting there selling a little bit, but it wasn't very aggressive. But it was an okay scalp anyway. Coming down to here, this was again, didn't get any mileage on this one. We pushed lower. This looked like this was now going to be the resulting trend after that Fed Day decision. Pushed lower through some supports, waiting for the pullback. Got the little pullback to zero. Took the short here. Pushed lower, scaled a bit out, as I like to do, just as we poke through the low. Again, only just got the 10 ticks on that, and I was looking for a really good move lower that I could cover into, because Fed Day you often get the change in trend. We didn't get that, and again I took the second half out as we approached back to break even. In fact, I lost a few ticks on that because I was looking at this tape seller here, a little bit of resistance there, and I gave it a little bit of room, so I lost a few ticks on that. So it's probably about 8 ticks net on half on that one. So again, struggling along, barely making a profit, but that's the way it is. Trying to pick the entries. These setups, I think, because the range was so low and really there was no genuine reprice, that we didn't really get that full move. And I like to scale out some at 10, and then I like to hold some for my final targets. But if you're not getting final targets, all you're doing is sort of treading water and just putting ticks in the bank. Happy to do that, but I prefer to to get on the end of some really, really good moves. I think there was only one last few days. We've only got one target on one of our trades, and that was that last push lower on the Monday. But other than that, we're just we're scaling out, which is why I scale out. At the end of the day, you're not going to get it right all the time. I scale out so I can take some off the table. So even if a trade doesn't work, as an example of this one, didn't work, push lower, didn't get that much lower push than I needed, but because I'd scaled out half at 10 and I took a small loss on the other half, it still was a profitable trade. So that's one of the main reasons why I scale out. If I hadn't scaled out, then that's a loss. It's a loss in the bank, and it's not a loss. It's not worth taking a loss. I'd rather scale and leave a little bit for that runner. So let's see what happens today. I've got a new blog out there. It's on a new site. It's on a WordPress site. I got a nice template for it, so hopefully it's easier to look at. I'm going to put my updates on there. I've got a little intraday update section where I'm just going to, when it's a quiet period, I just talk about what I'm looking for and what I'm waiting for. Like yesterday, I put as a divergence between the Y and the ES because there was slight difference. Talked about 11,500. Talked about no tick flush. And then I talked about waiting for the FOMC release, and I'm looking for a reprice and a pullback to get into it. Otherwise, I'm going to be leaving it. So have a look at the blog. It's www.thedaytradingroom.com. Trying to make that a bit more interactive now, get a bit more stuff on there. The forum's still there on tradingroom.co.uk. So good trading, guys. We're back again soon, the next few days, for another video. Let's hope we can get a bit more action and get those final targets. Manage your risk.